So I came down today to talk to Buddy Ferda, the owner and operator of Great Falls Ice. How many years have you owned Great Falls Ice, or been in this business?
Well, I've been throwing ice bags since 1978. So two gentlemen named Roger Hatler and Tom Storm, they started Great Falls Ice, and I believe they did it in Roger's basement or his garage.
So you started in '78 or around about
That's
there.
when I started.
Have you seen anything change in the ice business?
Oh, shoot, that's a good question. I know, back then, back in the early, mid 70s, the packaged ice idea was still pretty new. There were times back, and that's really before my time, and I'm getting to be an old guy, but back, you'd go to a grocery store, there wouldn't be ice. The only ice you could get was the ice that you made in your own freezer. And so, it started creeping in the grocery stores, but they would bag ice on site. Whatever ice they had left over from their produce section or something, they'd bag in ice, and it was, it was more of a convenience for their customers that they had it. And then slowly you saw this independent ice plants start up, and most of them start very small. I mean, I know Hatler and Storm, they started very small, and then, you might buy an ice merchandiser and put it in by a convenience store or a gas station, and then pretty soon another one wants it, and that's slowly how they built up. As far as changes, there's not a lot of changes in the actual ice machines. I got big commercial ice machines. I don't have the ones you find in restaurants. These are commercial ice machines. The manufacturer of these, it's called Vogt, V-O-G-T, and these are kind of like depending on if you're a Ford guy or a Chevy guy, this would be not a Cadillac, it's more of a work truck. There's not a lot of maintenance that's involved. They're pretty hardy machines, and once I turn them on, I do not want to turn them off because, and I'm selective. When I turn one on, I want it to go 24/7 versus turning it on and turning it off, because I'm getting charged by the power company not only my usage but my demand. And so once my demand hits a certain mark, I don't want to turn on another machine and have that demand go up, but only for a day or two. Okay, so this machine here will not turn off until October. And in refrigeration, most applications that you find, whether it's your refrigerator at home, your car, your air conditioner, most of those applications are 1 to 5 pounds of Freon. This beast has 500 pounds. And it's got what's called a freezing cycle, which it currently is in. What happens when you turn it on, there's a water pump. There's a water pump that takes the water up to the top. This is called your evaporator. That's where all the money in this machine, and this is where the cost of this bad boy is. It's all stainless steel. That's where all the Freon is, and that water is continually dripping down. Adam, if you want to look in here, you'll see water being dripped. With the water circulating like that, that's how you get that clear ice. If you're making ice at home and you use ice trays and you get that cloudy ice, it's because your water is stagnant. It's getting oxygen stuck in it and stuff. Anyhow, so that water is continually during the cycle and there's Freon in the evaporator that's freezing that water. When the controls and the pressure say, hey, it's time to dump the load, which is about every 15 to 16 minutes, the compressor will release hot gas, will defrost those long tubes of ice, and then the cutter motor, there's a cutter that spins around that cuts them into the little cubes. By gravity, they fall into the auger, which take them into my bin. In the ice business, like a lot of businesses, it's not what you think it is. And so not anybody could run it. I mean, anybody can run it, but you got to have some experience. You can't just come off the street and say, oh, that's something my wife and I could do on the weekends. I mean, there's a lot to it. And so, and I'll deal with the same thing when I get rid of it. You know, unless I sell it to somebody that has worked for me or knows something about it, I will be spending a lot of time trying to teach the new people. But anyhow, so my family bought it in 1991 from Hattler and Storm, and then I eventually we bought my dad out, and then I eventually bought my brother out.
Okay.
And so I've solely owned it since I think 2011 or 2012. Yeah. And I'm probably the oldest tenured ice guy in Montana. I think I've been doing it the longest. My resume, if I was to do something else, would be very short.